Today, we're going to do a little time traveling, but, we don't need a fancy machine or anything. Nope. All we need is a calendar, and we're going to lock it onto one single incredible week in February.
So here's the big question we're diving into, and it's a pretty wild one. Can just 7 days on the calendar, if you look at them across 3 different decades, actually map out the entire story of how a whole generation's culture completely changed?
Well, for this very specific slice of people, the ones sometimes called the Oregon Trail generation, the answer is a huge, resounding yes. If you were born around 1985, you have this really unique story because you literally grew up with one foot in 2 totally different worlds. The last gasps of a purely analog childhood and the wild, chaotic birth of the digital age.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to start in an age of shared culture, where basically everyone was watching the exact same thing. Then we'll jump to a revolution in how we started to interact with our entertainment. From there, we'll see the social web pop into existence, and finally, we'll see how everything shifted from watching the big show to becoming the show ourselves. Okay, first stop, the late 1980s. You gotta remember, this was a time before you had a million channels, before streaming was even a word, before the internet was a household thing. This was the era of monoculture, where really one screen ruled everything.
So the date we're zeroing in on is Friday, February 5th, 1988. A kid born in '85 is about 3 years old right now. Basically a little sponge just soaking up these huge, dramatic, and super simple stories that are being beamed right into their living room. And on this particular night, the WWF, the World Wrestling Federation, broadcasts the main event live on primetime network TV. I mean, this wasn't some niche thing on cable. This was a massive national event. It was the big rematch, the All-American good guy, Hulk Hogan, versus the unstoppable behemoth, Andre the Giant.
So how many people tuned in? Get this, a staggering 33 million. 33 million people, all staring at the same screen, watching the same story unfold at the exact same time.
Now, to put that number in perspective, look at this. 33 million viewers back then is right up there with a huge modern NFL game. But look at what it does to a modern scripted TV hit. Shows like The Last of Us or Yellowstone are lucky to get 12 million. It just blows them out of the water. This was a true, shared cultural campfire, the kind that barely even exists anymore.
And what was the story that had 33 million people so captivated? Oh, it was just perfect. You can't make this up. The evil $1 million man pays for plastic surgery to create an evil twin referee, locks the real ref in a closet, and then the evil twin ref cheats Hulk Hogan out of the title. It was basically a soap opera for 5-year-olds, and it taught a whole generation a pretty simple lesson. Heroes can get screwed over, and you can't always trust the guy in charge.
And that, right there, was the absolute peak of passive media. You just watched. That was your job. Then you'd talk about it the next day at school or work, but that's where your participation ended. That, in a nutshell, is monoculture.
Okay, let's jump forward now into the 90s. The screens are still there, for sure, but our whole relationship with them is about to get a major upgrade. The monoculture starts to splinter, and this new idea starts to take over: interaction. So it's February 4th, 1994, and the movie Ace Ventura: Pet Detective hits theaters. Almost instantly, a catchphrase goes viral. But remember, there's no TikTok, no Twitter, no memes to share. The algorithm was just the loudest, most annoying kid in the school cafeteria yelling, "Alrighty then," over and over. And this marks a really, really important change. We weren't just passively watching Jim Carrey on a screen anymore. Kids were actively becoming him. They were doing the walk, the voice, the catchphrases. Media wasn't just something to look at. It was now a script you could perform. But that interaction was about to get a lot more, well, physical. Let's fast forward to February 8th, 1999. Mario Party comes out on the Nintendo 64. And some of the minigames in it required you to just furiously spin the analog stick, which led to this bizarre epidemic of kids getting horrible blisters on their palms and, believe it or not, a massive class action lawsuit. And the solution was just as weird as the problem itself. Nintendo ends up settling the whole thing by putting aside $80 million, not to change the game, but to give protective fingerless sports gloves to anyone who owned it. Think about that. They didn't patch the software, they told kids to glove up. We had officially gone from just watching a hero
to literally injuring ourselves trying to be one.
Okay, time for our next big jump, the early 2000s. We've gone from watching to doing. But this next leap, it's even bigger. It's not about playing a character anymore. It's about inventing your own.
And that brings us to our final pivotal date, February 4th, 2004. On this day, a little website called The Facebook goes live. And with it, the final piece of this transformation clicks into place, the age of digital identity. Now, it's so easy to forget this, but its original purpose was super specific. It was literally built for Harvard students, and it was pretty much a tool for them to rate and judge each other. The whole thing was built on social evaluation right from the start. And this was a totally new kind of participation. The goal wasn't to watch Hulk Hogan anymore, or to act like Ace Ventura. The new goal was to build a profile, to carefully select your photos, to list your favorite movies and books, to construct and broadcast an idealized digital version of you for the world to see. So, let's put it all together. When you look at these 3 moments all happening in the same week in February across a couple of decades, you see this incredibly clear and powerful story about how our entire relationship with culture has transformed. This slide really says it all, doesn't it? Back in 1988, you had the shared spectacle, one simple story being broadcast out to 33 million people. Fast forward to 2004, and you have the curated self, millions of individual stories all being crafted and funneled into one person's feed. The entire model got flipped on its head. It went from one to many to one. And that whole journey just leaves us with this one big final question. We've seen this clear path from a single shared reality to millions of personalized private ones. So what's the next step? What happens after that? What happens when our realities aren't just curated anymore, but completely generated for us? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for watching.